another episode of Curious. On today's show, we speak with Mamaroneck resident Leilani Yiser-Reed, former president of the Westchester chapter of the Harriet Tubman Home, community wellness advocate, blogger, vlogger, and podcaster. Welcome, Leilani.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Now, I had it on the list that you were a quilter, but that's not true, is it?
No, it's not true. I am not a quilter.
You did have a program at the Mamaroneck Library recently,
Yes.
and it was about quilting. Can you talk about that a little bit?
So, no, it's this year. This year, I keep thinking we're almost at the end of the year. So, this year for Black History Month, my sister-in-law, who's the art teacher her name is Kirsten Yiser, she asked me to come in and do a program or teach the kids about Black History Month. What I decided to do, she's like, I was like, well, I don't want the kids to just learn about the regular Black History Month figures like Martin Luther King, Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass. Those are all great people, but I wanted them to learn about people who came from their own hometown, so people who came from Mamaroneck.
That's brilliant.
So we started gathering information, or I started gathering information of residents, past and kind of present, so as early as, or late as like, I don't know, the oldest person. We talked about the slaves in Mamaroneck. That the slaves in Mamaroneck was a representation on the quilt. And then we also had as late as maybe a 2009 graduate from Mamaroneck High School, just to show the kids that people came from your own hometown. They were African Americans, they were Africans that came from here and did amazing things in their community and throughout the country.
Now, you integrated some symbols into the quilt.
Yes.
But you didn't quilt it. Who quilted it?
The kids did. The kids quilted it. The kids quilted it. So I love Adinkra symbols.
And what's that?
Adinkra symbols are particular symbols from Africa. And each symbol has its own meaning, its own word, and they're used on their cloth, in their artwork, sometimes to represent like kings and queens. You know, they're in just different things, sculptures. And Kirsten, she printed out different Adinkra symbols with different meanings, and the kids, mainly I believe it was the kindergartners and the first graders, they decorated, they picked out which Adinkra symbol resonated most with them, whether it was courage, love, patience, endurance. We explained all of them to them, and they picked out whichever one resonated with them, and they were able to color in the Adinkra symbol. It was a paper Adinkra symbol, using a batik method. So batiking.
I used to do batik.
Yes, I love batiking. Batiking is taking like a oil based and coloring it in wherever spaces that you want on, whether it's cloth or paper, and then using watercolor over it. That's the technique.
Okay. That's a little different than what I used to do. I used to do wax and wax and material.
Yeah, so we use a crayon as the wax base.
Ah, I see.
And I said oil. Did I say oil before?
Yes.
So I meant wax, but wax.
It's okay.
We used crayon, and the kids drew circles or drew whatever shapes they wanted to, and then used the watercolor to paint over the wax.
That sounds exciting. So how did you come up with this idea?
So it was just, she asked me to come in and I said, okay. Like, I really wanted to. At first it was just going to be one classroom. I said, why not do it the whole day? So I took off work and I came in and we did as many classrooms, as many grade levels as we can. So we did kindergarten, the first, second, third grade wasn't able to do it, but fourth and fifth.
Now, I wanted to, I'm sorry, I
okay.
didn't mean to interrupt you. I wanted to ask you, in one of the recent workshops you had, you were talking about, wasn't it a mix of people? Was it adults and children, or?
The quilt?
Yeah.
So in the quilt, there was a mixture of adults and children, and as well as buildings, because we highlighted the Barry Avenue Church, Amy Zion Church in Mamaroneck, and we highlighted the Skinny House in Mamaroneck. And how it turned into the library is that we partnered up with the Mamaroneck Historical Society. And I wanted to say, we wanted it to be a community program because it was just at Mamaroneck Avenue School. We said, we wanted to bring this to the community. So we worked with the Mamaroneck Historical Society and the library and created this community Sunday afternoon program where people could learn about the history of Black people in Mamaroneck and then do a patch themselves.
That sounds really interesting. So are there any future plans to do something similar
We are
for 2020?
We're in the gears. We're talking about doing another quilt, like because it's a paper quilt, not an actual cloth quilt, but a quilt project for Black History Month for 2020. And this year or next year, we'll be highlighting the arts. So that means fine arts, literature, poetry, and music.
Now, your resume says you are a Bennett Bell.
Yes.
What is a Bennett Bell?
So a Bennett Bell is a graduate or somebody who went to Bennett College. You don't have to be, even if you went there for a semester or a year, you are still considered a Bennett Bell because you laid your feet on that campus and you attended classes. But I graduated from Bennett College for Women in 2004.
It doesn't mean it's not like a sorority or anything.
No, it's definitely not a sorority. I'm not a part of a sorority. But I hold true to being from or graduating from Bennett College because it is, I will keep saying it is a historically Black college for women, and there are only 2 historically Black colleges for women in this country.
So how do you think that shaped your education going to a all-Black female college? Because that's very, isn't that a little unique?
It is unique, especially coming from Mamaroneck, where you're surrounded by predominantly white residents, and going to a historically Black college, it was just different. The culture was different for me. I was like, one, it was in the South. It's in Greensboro, North Carolina. I was not used to the South. And
in what way? What made it different?
It was different being around Black people, a lot of Black people at one time. I'm used to my family, but it was just different for me. I used to joke with my friends. I was like, I can't deal with too many Black folks. And they still joke with me today. They're like, Leilani can't do too many Black folks. But it was just an interesting experience knowing that I was surrounded by women of color, Black women. My majority of my professors were Black. And just looking at the professional, and I am a person who loves legacy. I love history and learning about my family history, understanding Bennett's history. I become alive, especially now when I return back to the college. I become so alive and understanding and feeling the spirits of those who came before me. I didn't necessarily understand that when I was there, but I realized it and I appreciated it after I graduated.
So why do you think that was? Was it because you were too busy with school?
I was busy with a lot of things, and I think at the time I wasn't really, I was still learning myself. And I had a rough senior year. I dealt with depression. And so I didn't understand it until after I graduated, and I didn't appreciate it.
So what do you appreciate in hindsight?
In hindsight, I appreciate the sisterhood. I appreciate the longevity of the school. I appreciate those who came before me, and I appreciate the knowledge, because I gained a lot of knowledge. I love my advisor. She's like my second mother. I still call her today.
What's her name?
Vita Jones. Vita Jones and her mother, Archie Jones. I appreciated both of them because they helped me get through college, my college days, along with my girlfriends. But I just appreciate Bennett for what it is and what it has done for so many Black women across this nation and the world, actually, because there are people from around the world that attend Bennett.
Now, I wanted to talk about, you also went to New Rochelle College. What did you do at New Rochelle College? What were you working on?
So I was working on my graduate degree in art therapy. I attended.
And what does that mean exactly? People say art therapy, but what does that mean?
It's like, in simple form, is using art as therapy. You know, if people are interested in using other methods outside of the conventional way, which is talk therapy, they can use art. If they are artistic and that's how they speak, they can speak through their art, and we can then transmute whatever they're going through their art and help them heal. There's also drama therapy, there's play therapy, there's music therapy, but I chose
the drama therapy. That was interesting.
It's
a little.
It's different.
It's different.
It's
yes.
different.
Yes, it's different.
It's a different modality for people who are into drama and can speak through a different character, but get their feelings out. So somebody may not necessarily say, you know, this is me, but I'm speaking through a different character. So and heal that way. But I chose art because I've always been artistic. Never considered myself an artist until a few years ago, because I wasn't practicing like that.
What's your medium?
I do a little bit. I thank God for the art therapy program. I've tried a little bit of everything. So I've done sculpture with clay. I've done stonework. I've painted in my past. I've done drawings. So I could say a little bit of everything except quilting.
That's a little private joke. That's so funny.
But I've done a little bit of everything. So, and I've always wanted to use my God-given artistic ability, and then use it to help others.
So I wanted to ask you about the College of New Rochelle because it no longer exists theoretically. So how did you feel about that? Because a lot of people were devastated that it closed.
My husband was attending College of New Rochelle in his undergrad, you know, at the same time that I was going. Or no, not the same time. He did it afterwards. But it's hard when you have to change. You know, when things are closing or it's in jeopardy of closing and being unsure of something. It's scary, and it's sometimes hard to grasp. But you know. You move on. For me, it's like you move on, but I know it's easier said than done for other people. And I think my life lessons have taught me how to move on. And I didn't feel no ways. I felt like, they were a little disorganized, but from start to finish, maybe not start, but definitely towards the end.
Well, they had a lot of issues happening.
Yeah. And I hope that people who lost their jobs were able to find something.
Now, I wanted to talk about, you also have a website called Journey to Discover Me.
Yes.
Which I find very brave.
Thank
you have a diary on it.
Yes.
Which I found it very interesting that you were willing to talk about very publicly about very private things. You had 4 miscarriages, and you write about that.
Yes.
So where did the courage come from to write about that in a public way?
I feel like I've always been open. I consider myself a flower child. I am not closed mouth. I'm very just public in just who I am, and not afraid to speak of what I've experienced or what I've done. My life is an open book, and it's a learning lesson.
How did you speak about it when sometimes couples who have miscarriages, they can't speak to each other sometimes about the feelings and what's going on, and you know, sometimes people become more introverted because of it?
I think because my husband and I, we consistently work on our communication. And I asked him, even though it's my story, it's our story, it's our story, but it's me writing. I asked him, was it okay, to put us out there like that? A lot of in my diary, journals, writings, I talk about me and my journey, because his journey was separate and how he dealt with it, and mine was separate and was different. And just how we dealt with it. And it was hard. It was very hard. I was in school. I was in the middle of writing my thesis.
Oh my goodness.
So I've had 4. I had 1 prior to my husband, and then 3 with him. And those 3 happened in a span of a year and a half.
That's a lot.
It was
a lot to go through.
It was a lot. So my first miscarriage with him, like I said, I was in the middle of a thesis, and I was like going crazy. Mind you, thesis is like, that was just a headache and a half dealing with that.
But just a little short, what is a thesis and what do you go through?
Thesis is a paper that you write. I guess not all graduate programs require you to write a thesis, but a thesis is just you picking a topic that you're very interested in, doing research, doing surveys, and my particular thesis was on will art therapy be a valid service if it's not diverse? Because majority of our therapists are white females. So what happens if there was a male who is seeking a male art therapist, would they find one? And would they still seek the service, So if we're not a diverse population, people will not require us. They will not come to us. So I know for myself, when I look for services, whether it be physicians, doctors, counselors, whatever, clinicians, I'm looking for a Black female. And if I can't see that in art therapy, if it's not reflected, then I'm not going to utilize the service. So then people will be out of jobs. So all these people are going to school to be
people might not even know it's there.
People might know it's there, but in reality, there are not a lot of Black art therapists or art therapists of color, and there are not a lot of males. So they need to start the art therapy programs, graduate programs, or even undergrad, because it's undergrad program as well, start recruiting to be more diverse.
People of color.
Not just people of color, but males, people of
I
color,
didn't even think of that.
Everything. If you're not diverse, people may not utilize your services.
Okay.
So that was what my thesis was on.
Okay, so you were working on your thesis when this happened.
Yes. So I literally broke down. It was a major moment. Like, I couldn't function.
It's hard.
It was hard. I couldn't function.
Because you have all these expectations, correct?
It wasn't I don't know what kind of expectations, rather than it was just hard dealing with the fact that I wasn't able to carry a child. And I kind of knew, because I also was diagnosed early in high school.
Yes, that's what I was going to ask you.
Polycystic ovarian syndrome.
About that.
Yeah,
because you write about that in your blog, and you knew since high school. And what is that like? How do you?
It didn't register. You're young. You don't I'm not like 18 saying like I'm gonna have a baby tomorrow. So it didn't register. All I knew was like I had to get my sugar levels in check, and that was it. Whatever. And so when it when I had that miscarriage, it just, everything started sinking in, like, oh my God, I may not ever be able to get pregnant. And then I just stuck with that, and I just kept replaying, losing my child and and at that time I had, I believe, I was like 8 weeks, 8 weeks. And I heard a heartbeat. I had experienced certain things.
That's really hard.
I ended up I had like 2 therapists at one time because I literally, every day I was crying. All I knew is that I had to get up and go to work.
So how did you get from there to here? I mean, you can talk about it.
I can talk about it because I did a lot of work. So after my first one with my husband, then we had another one, and another one was like, that one was right almost before Thanksgiving of that same year. And then I was like, oh my God, I couldn't even get through Thanksgiving. And then we tried again with no break. And then I think I got pregnant like matter of fact, I found out on my dad's birthday that I was pregnant. And then I was 4 months pregnant when I lost my third child with my husband. And at that time, I knew it was a girl. I could start feeling the movement in my body. I was having the craving. That was like my furthest pregnancy. I started feeling all the feels. And when I lost my baby, I was okay. And her name was River.
Oh.
Her name was River Jasmine Reed. And when I lost her, I knew because I knew I was going to lose her. And she reassured me that she was okay.
Wow.
Because I was in the hospital and I said, all I heard was, and it was our last sonogram, all I heard was, "It is well." So like the song, "It Is Well With My Soul." So I heard
that. Was my mom's favorite song.
I heard that in my head. And I said, my baby's telling me she's okay. And I can let go. So with that, all those years or that year and a half and dealing with that trauma, I was okay with letting her go, but I just wasn't okay.
I would think that.
So I was grateful. I had an awesome coworker who kind of like, I always tell her, she's always like, you helped heal me.
What did she do exactly?
She's a sacred woman, Venus Moore. She's a sacred woman practitioner. She studied under Queen Afua. And every day she was just reassured. Like, it was just simple things that she was saying and helping me, like, kind of get over it. And then she asked me to come to a Sacred Women circle that was being held by one of her sister queens, Karma. And the Sacred Circle is just a group of women talking about trauma. It's just a healing from trauma. And you can go around, you can explain your story. It's a lot of calling out to your ancestors, calling out...
Which is an African tradition.
Yes. Calling out to your ancestors, calling out to just ask for them to help guide you in your healing journey and everything else. And I felt like I cried my last cry there.
Oh, really? So what advice would you give to someone who is going through what you went through? What advice would you give as the mother, as the wife? You can't really...
Or if whoever your spouse is or whatever, one, communicate with the other person because they're going through it just as much as you are. I would suggest seeking help, whether it be talk therapy, art therapy, whatever therapy. Seek help from, if you have support, whatever your support system looks like. You know, seek them.
Family.
It could be family, friends.
Spiritual support.
Everything, whatever you consider support. Because I don't want to tell somebody what support is. You know, so whatever you consider support, reach out. I host a support group. That's one thing that came out of this journey, is that I created a support group called Strong Enough for women and men, because it's not just a woman's journey, it's a male's journey.
Yes.
Because they have fertility issues as well with their sperm and everything else. So it's both male and female. But I host a male and female support group for those who've had infant loss, pregnancy loss or miscarriages or fertility issues, because some people just have fertility issues and never had the chance to get pregnant, but they still yearn and mourn what they can't have. And that's very important, that we don't just say it's just one. It encompasses a lot. So my support group meets at in Hastings in a spot called NUR space.
Okay.
In Hastings.
And we'll have that on at the end.
Yeah.
For people who are interested in attending.
Yeah.
So so have you developed any therapy projects for working through fertility issues or loss or?
Just right now, it's just Strong Enough, the support group. I think I've sought out a lot of different mediums in terms of healing. I've done
That's important
readings.
to do.
I've done Reiki healing readings. Sought through. I consistently and talk to myself a lot, but I know I'm not talking to myself. I'm talking to God. I'm talking to my ancestors. I'm talking to my spiritual guides. Anybody out there who can help me, I'm constantly talking to just to make sure that I'm aligned. And one thing that I've discovered that I need to do is create my business, which is River Eyes. And I've been holding on to the concept for so long. And one of my readings, it said, you may not be birthing your child right now, but you need to birth something. And I was like, if I can't birth my child right now, I'm going to birth this business.
Well, on that note, we're going to have to say goodnight.
Oh, good night.
Leilani. But it was a pleasure speaking to you,
Yes,
and
thank
I have
you.
to compliment you on your bravery. I don't know how you write about this in public and express it, and you express it so clearly and with compassion.
Thank you.
And I thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
Curious.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching, and good night.